like I get a lot of people that come up to me and say, man, I really love the era of which you worked in. And I say, I do too. And they say, well, I don't like the way things are today in professional wrestling, man. I just can't get into it. And I'm like, I can't really get into it in a lot of ways like I used to back in the day either. But this ain't my generation anymore. So
no, but there's reasons. There's reasons why. There's reasons why. Kayfabe had a lot to do with it.
Oh no, I'm just talking about the fan.
No, I know, but being a fan,
right?
I enjoyed watching the guys that I watched from 1980 to whatever it was that I stopped watching. Now, I knew that they weren't bad guys. Big John Studd, when I first meet him, I was scared shitless. Really was, because I saw him on TV, fights Andre the Giant. Oh, my God, he's a bad guy. He hurts people. But you learn that he's just a friendly guy. He's a normal guy, But
a lot of fans didn't get as close to the business as you got to the business.
Oh, yeah. The kayfabe.
I'm going to get into that in a second. What I'm talking about in generalities, as the world changes, as the world turns, like when you were just saying, we brought up Jackie Gleason and the Honeymooners, and some of the verbiage that he used in that sitcom. As things progressed, that verbiage is not permitted anymore. So that is the change of which I'm talking about. We as people, things change for the better sometimes. Then if we're from another generation, things can be like, man, I wish how it was in my day. But it's not like it is in my day anymore. But I still have to move forward and try to adapt to this because I'm not used to it. That's what I mean, if that makes sense. Yeah. And professional wrestling, I can see why today's generation gravitates to it. And I can see why my generation don't. Because I do another show with Vince Russo, and man, this is wrong. They don't do this anymore. Man, when I was writing, they did this and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Vince, our time has passed, man. We still can enjoy the product to a certain degree. We just have to adapt to it slightly. That's all.
But it's character developed. It's having the heels.
It's gone.
It's having the hero.
It's gone.
A lot of it's gone. Gone.
But the people today don't care about that so much.
They care about what you put in front of them.
Exactly. And that's the difference in the world. Wrestling is mainstream now. You got to remember, back in the time you got in it, and back in the time that, a few years later I got in it, professional wrestling was a subculture. That is the kayfabe that you're talking about right now. The kayfabe was a subculture, which means we didn't let it was like the mafia. You got in on a wing and a prayer. You one out of a billion that got in the way you do because you came in under the ropes.
Well, I came in because
most people would have never let a kid come in here and do what you did.
I agree. The difference for me was that all of the boys were fans.
Right.
Even the ones that I didn't really talk to all that much.
Right.
They were still fans. And the old guys were fans, from Pat Patterson to Slaughter to Rene Goulet to the ring guys, Mike and Mark Yeaton and Tony Chemmel.
Right.
They were all fans. They brought me in the back. You start meeting the guys, and really, there was the beginnings of bringing in celebrities into the world of wrestling. But certainly no like me.
84, 85, 83,
sure,
right in there.
85 is WrestleMania. The first WrestleMania is 85, and 6 months later, I walked into Meadowlands.
Right.
As a guest of Big John Studd's.
Right.
So meeting Piper and Hogan and Randy Savage and Beefcake and Valentine and the rest of the boys and
the golden era.
Yeah, I mean, to say I was fortunate would be the understatement of the millennium.
That's what I'm saying, man, because you got to witness things people couldn't even fathom. They couldn't even fathom the business and how the business was ran and how people were. They couldn't fathom. I mean, when I got in back in 89, it was like, working the independents and then going to the building and seeing these guys and stuff like that. They were still kind of kayfabe-ish and standoff, and I was in the business.
Oh yeah.
But nowadays, I mean, they always talk about the day the music died. I would love for somebody to do a documentary on the day Kayfabe died. I really would.
It's the invention of the web and the internet. That's where it kind of went down, because there became so many ways to reach out to people and so many fans that you want to reach to. And they want to know stuff. You know, there was a time when there was no TMZ.
That's true.
You know, that helped a lot to keep the kayfabe thing there. You know, I mean, there were very few times that I sat in a bar next to a heel and a hero. Very few times. You know, I can tell you how many times I went to dinner with Hogan and Beefcake, but Piper was never there, and you know, other guys weren't. You know, because they didn't do that. They didn't want to see the mix.
I'm gonna tell you, I've seen where guys had to like put blankets over their heads if they were driving by fans, you know, and lay down in the back seat of the car, things of that nature, because it was just forbidden. It was just forbidden to be seen. And you remember this? Remember when the heels and the babyface could not come out of the same door? I remember the first time I saw that, when Vince started doing that, I was like, me and a buddy of mine, I can't remember what year it was, but we went to one of the WWF shows here in Houston in a place called The Summit, which is now the big Lakewood Church. I'm quite sure you've heard of that. But it was called The Summit back then. That's where all the concerts came. That's where all the wrestling events and so on and so forth. And we went to a WWF. I used to have trouble with WWF. Now I have trouble with WWE. And the guys came, how they everything. And me and my mom was like, wow, how? It was so weird, because all my life, I started going to wrestling events when I was in elementary school. Elementary school. I had never seen this before. And that was so shocking to me that, wow, well, oh well, maybe that's what they're doing now. You know, I'm really not in the business. You know, I didn't get in the business until a few years later, but just watching it. And I was like, thought that was crazy. Now, that's the norm.